Welcome to Tell Talk Tuesday. I am Dr. Patricia Morgan, the founder and CEO of the Executive Learning Lab. We help organizations strengthen their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Today's episode, we're going to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and education. Our goal from hosting Tell Talk Tuesday is to explore topics under the DEI umbrella and organizational development umbrella. Today, my guest is Daniel Frankson, a former educator, and we're going to talk about his experience leading into going into education and then subsequently leaving the field. I think both are important to highlight. So Daniel, can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Hey, what's going on, Dr. Morgan,
Good,
aka the boss. So as she mentioned, my name is Daniel Frankson, currently a real estate professional, former teacher in Atlanta Public Schools. Taught for a few years at Frederick Douglass High School in the west side of Atlanta. So that's
Background.
my background as far as education is concerned.
And what did you teach, by the way?
So I laugh because every time I say the subject, my wife laughs at me. She hears it, but I used to teach ninth grade language arts, ninth grade literature.
They trust you with ninth graders?
They trusted me with education, period. They can't speak to something about APS if we keep it real. The fact that they hired me in the first place. But yeah,
All right. Graders. So can I ask you what brought you to the field of education?
It's an interesting question. For me, I definitely would have to say number one is passion. And I think a lot of that comes from my own personal experiences. I'm from Jamaica originally, left relatively young at the age of 10, went from Jamaica to London, England, and from London, England to Brooklyn, New York. And I think it was my experiences in Brooklyn, New York that kind of shaped that passion for me. I ended up attending, I guess what you'd call an alternative school. I think that's what it would be called. And I'd say the vast majority of the student body were either first generation immigrants from the Caribbean or their parents, came from the Caribbean. So for us, particularly the young men in Brooklyn at that time, there was a lot of things that kind of took your attention away from what was important, whether it was gang influence or, all the kind of crazy things that were going on at the time. And we all had our own little individual challenges. You know how it is growing up as a young person anywhere, but when you're growing up in a society that it's not your first society and you're different in many ways, there's additional challenges. And we didn't have anyone that looked like us to turn to at the school. Not to say we didn't have good teachers and good educators, but there was no black male teacher at our school, despite the fact that 99% of the student body were black and from another country. And so for me, a lot of those experiences kind of, made me want to get into it for myself. And I mean, I could go into various detail, whether it is a teacher not understanding why I think or why I communicate the way I do based on cultural differences, or not understanding why certain pressures were a lot for myself and a lot of my friends to kind of handle because we're young black men. And so whether it's dealing with, all the ignorance I mentioned, like the gang activity in the area, or bigger than the gang activity, the way we were dealt with by police, NYPD, and the fact that a lot of our teachers couldn't relate to that because they never had those experiences personally. Again, I think, that experience, me seeing a lot of my friends end up in the system or go down paths that probably weren't the best fit. I think if we had some black male teachers, we could have probably avoided a lot of the headaches that we did. So that's, long story short, what prompted me to get into education.
Okay, can I follow up and ask you about a topic that you mentioned, representation. You noted that you didn't see a lot of people in your schools that looked like you.
Right.
Was this in terms of the teachers, the administrators, both?
Yeah, both. Definitely both. I mean, again, we did have, in terms of teachers, we did have a few black women, and definitely have to give a lot of respect to them. Namely Miss Karen. Miss Karen was probably the primary reason why I didn't end up in certain situations that were would have really taken my life down a different path. Miss Karen fought for me tooth and nail.
Wow.
Every little situation that I got into, she was there, she had my back. So Miss Karen was like my mother at school.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One incident in particular, if I can share, I mean, it's so simple now, but when I look back on it now, but I had an art teacher, young white guy from, I don't know where he was from. He wasn't from New York.
Yeah.
He was from somewhere, I think, in the Midwest. Totally different culture, no understanding of the Caribbean or fast-paced Brooklyn. And we just didn't see eye to eye. And I was the type of student that was going to challenge him. I was going to push the limits. And he ended up failing me for art.
You failed art?
Failed art. And from my little perspective at the time as a 14-year-old,
yeah.
I'm like, yo, every time you put an assignment on the board, I do it. And you can't tell me I rushed it. I mean, you asked me to draw a landscape with a sun. It might look garbage, but I'm telling you, this is done. This is my art. This is my art. I'm done. I know it's 48 minutes left of class. This is me. This is my vision.
So now we see why Daniel failed art.
So I felt like he couldn't tell me that the work wasn't done. Like, this is art. You have to respect my art. Me being difficult, right? But he failed me for art. Last day of school. School is officially out for the summer. Me and my friends went to go play basketball at the park. I mean, like, when I say school is out, it's 2-3 hours. School is done.
Oh, wow.
Officially summer break. I see this guy in the pizzeria when we're walking back to go home. And I asked him, I said, why did you fail me for art? That's crazy. I failed art. That's mad. And we exchanged some words. I said something crazy to him and left. And by the time I got home, he had already reported it to the school and got the police involved. And it was strictly down to Miss Karen why he didn't pursue charges. That's what he was looking to do. Now, mind you, what I said to him, I don't think was that egregious. It's not something that a 14-year-old should be saying to any adult. Don't get me wrong. I'm not downplaying my participation in it. Yeah. But I think if he would have had a better understanding of who I was, or we could relate on a different level, it would have never got to that point. The situation wasn't that deep. So again, I use that as an example to show how Miss Karen was such a vital role as a black woman in the school, and also to show the lack of a black male, whether it's a teacher or just an educator, administrator, how the lack of that presence also impacted us as well.